Hey, it's Steve Wilmes.
And it's Matt Keita.
And we're here with another episode of the Risk Control Show. Folks, we're excited to be here. Hurricane Ian is rip-roaring through Florida, which brings up a lot of emergency preparedness questions. We talk about this all the time. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people go, blah, 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 blah. We talk about active shooters. Well, we just had a shooter in Oakland. Yep. We just had one in Texas. We just had this EMT individual, Russo, in New York, stabbed to death. You have a hurricane that's going to reform and pound into South Carolina here real soon. So, you know, it's one of these deals that we look at and we have to really take into consideration a lot of different emergency preparedness concepts. Right. So I think, Matt, let them have it, man. I don't know. This is one of those things, man. You got to have certain resources.
You absolutely do. And that's the thing. I was horrified, and I'm sure you probably saw something like this as well recently in the wake of Hurricane Ian going through South Florida. I saw a drone video of Fort Myers, which is right around the area where it made landfall. And that city, which is like a tourist and retirement center area, was completely wiped out. Like, there wasn't a single property that didn't have severe damage. You saw boats randomly floating.
Yeah.
Yeah, both in the ocean and on the waterways inside where they'd been
floating on top of apartment complexes and
right, yeah,
streets and homes and front lawns and parks and swing sets and all over the place, man.
And I, at the same time, I also read that in the lead up to that it was anticipated the state of Florida anticipated that only about 10% of residents were going to flee the path of the hurricane. That they were going to choose to board up their homes and hunker down or go to a shelter. Or
10% we're going to stay, right?
No, 10%.
90%?
90% we're going to stay. Yeah, I know that.
I don't think that's right.
Where
did you read that? The Onion?
I don't think it was The Onion. Look, if it's higher than 1%, that is staying, it's too high for something like
that.
This.
Seems 90% of people are staying?
Yeah.
In the state of Florida.
Yeah, well, I mean, in
not in their home on the...
Yeah, they may not be. Yeah, they may not be.
Well, you better re-research that. I don't know about that. That seems pretty...
I'll see if I can find it, but
I'm calling BS on that number. I don't know. But,
right,
but okay, let's say it's 30% of the people.
Okay.
All right, let's say 10% of the people stay.
Yeah.
It's a huge drain on resources.
Yes.
And you can't get in there. And it reminds me of that old joke. God help me, God save me.
Yeah, that's right. Did we tell? I think we might have touched on that one in another video. It's so true, though.
Yeah, I sent you a boat, a helicopter. Anyway, yeah, look it up if you haven't heard it before. But no, I think it's a big drain on resources. But if you are going to try and stay prepared like that, I think it's important to get your resources together and understand what transpires. And, we're here in California. We're in Los Angeles. Earthquakes could hit at any time.
Yes.
It's not as predictable as a hurricane. Yeah. There's not as much forewarning, right? But, look, water is so important to your emergency survival.
Right.
To your emergency plan and your survival. It is just so important that you have that available to you. Cooking, cleaning, hydration, right? All of that is necessary to have in order to survive. You have to have it clean. You have to have drinkable water, potable water.
Right.
Which means you have to have a lot. I mean, you're talking about a gallon per day per person, and that's minimal.
Yes.
That's minimal.
Yes.
That's not enough to do anything.
Yeah.
So a 55-gallon drum, you want at least a few of those hanging around. I mean, you know, I was thinking about this because we just recently filled 215
Was it
water
that
barrels.
much?
Yeah.
Wow.
Here's Matt when he was all wet and dirty and looking good with his hat on. You know, like that's just one little scenario there, right, Matt?
Right,
That's you,
yeah.
man. Look at you up
Yeah,
there.
I know.
Yeah, you're looking stately there, I'd say.
Stately or stout. There are many adjectives that come to
Weighing in
mind.
at 440 pounds, it takes a big guy to move those barrels.
Yep.
So, look, the point being here, let's show the crew me. You know, I'm not looking much better there.
Right.
It was a dirty job.
It was a very dirty job.
Where's Mike Rowe when you need him?
Right, yeah, no kidding.
But anyway, water. Water's so important.
Yes.
Once you get floodwaters, so you probably don't know this, but living in St. Charles, Missouri, growing up, I lived near the river.
Okay.
And we lived on a hill, but my grandparents lived at the bottom of the hill. And every year it would flood. And every few years you'd get a really big flood. So I worked a lot of floods.
Right.
And in 74, there was a big one. And again, there was a big one. And I worked those ones when I was a little older, you know, 13, 14, 15, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But once you're in that flood water, and there's all kinds of stuff floating around. Your wastewater treatment facilities are contaminated with everything that goes through the toilet and everything else.
Right.
You have all kinds of chemical factories that get contaminated. There's open tanks a lot of times where all that stuff's flowing out. You got just all kinds of cess in there, and it's nasty. And in order for you to get that off so that you don't get cellulitis, that you don't get the open sores, right, you have to have clean water. You got to be able to wash up.
Yeah.
And so it's important that you treat your water, that you refresh your water, that you make sure that you have it and a lot of it, and you want it so that it's in a place that you can get to it, in a place that's not going to float away, that's not going to be contaminated by the water.
Right.
Like, hey, if you got one and you got cess all over top of it, and then you got nothing to clean that off with, well, that does you no good either.
Yep.
So water.
Yeah, water is absolutely critical. Look, you can, if heaven forbid you should not have any food available, you can get by without food for a lot longer than you can without water. You can go, if you need to, you can go weeks without food. Not that we would recommend that for anybody. You obviously
Well, maybe for you and I.
Yeah, maybe for us. But water, you're not going to last 2 days, 3 days without water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you get the real severe headaches and all that kind of stuff starts going on.
Yeah. You become incapacitated and then it's over. And water is absolutely critical. So if you're not prepared, whether on a personal level, like in your home in Florida, or let's say you're responsible for a community and you need to provide them with water, if you're not prepared for that, then look at what's going on in Florida right now and take that into consideration, because that really needs to be at the top of your priority list.
Yeah, I think it comes right back to what we're always saying, that fault versus responsibility.
Yes.
Especially like, hey, I know we purchased 50, 60, how many? Water drums.
Yeah, it's 50, I think it was 55.
55 gallon water drums a year ago. And they're still not filled.
Yeah.
And that, how do you defend that in the event of something like a regional earthquake where you need water and you're responsible for 400 kids, and here you got a bunch of empty barrels.
Right.
That doesn't fly. Right. So you got to follow it all the way through. You got to do it. Get it filled. I know debates go on. Do I want to use bleach tablets or iodine tablets or blah, 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 blah? It doesn't matter, okay?
Right.
And for all those parents out there and the chlorine alarmist and all this kind of stuff, your water is chlorinated that comes into your house, okay? Forget about it. You go in a swimming pool, it's chlorinated 99% of the time,
right?
Okay? Chlorine is out there. I get it that you don't want to be ingesting all this chlorine or over concentrate.
Right.
But look, would you rather have water and live, or would you rather have no water because the water that you choose to drink has chlorine in it?
Right.
Okay, we put 5 drops, 10 drops of bleach in the water to stabilize it for a 5-year period.
Yep.
When you do that, you take the water out, you heat it up, and boil it, and all good to go, right?
Yeah.
And so make sure you have your water, aerate it when you pull it out, pour it cup to cup to cup to cup 4 or 5 times, get those air molecules into your water just to re-energize the water itself, right? So you're not going to taste much different, but it's going to capture a few of those in exchange and all that kind of stuff that goes on. So it's important, but take care of your water, folks. Make sure you have your emergency supplies. We've been talking about this a lot, and you never know when one of these events is going to hit, and you never know when it's going to be the 500-year marker one. Right. Like I know when one of my colleagues, Big D, when he talks about these events, we're always talking about floods and flood maps, and it's a 500-year event, it's a 100-year event. What's the risk? Well, we've just had 2. You know what the first one was?
No, what?
COVID.
Right. Yes.
Okay. We had COVID. Now
One every 100 years. Last big one was the Spanish flu in 1919. Almost 100 years to the date.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, look, you don't know when the massive one's going to hit. We had all that pushback on pandemics. Oh, it's a stupid plan. It's never going to happen. I even said at the beginning. And I even said at the beginning, and I'm sure some of my clients that were there with me, I said, don't worry, you're not going to die from this. We've seen SARS, we've seen avian. I was wrong. I was dead wrong.
Yeah.
And again, I thought that we'd have a better handle on this, but it just was what it was.
Right.
And so you never know. You have to be prepared. And that means you got to keep your health up. You got to train. You got to stay in training, right? You got to be able to push and pull and walk up flights of steps and swim and do all those things that you need to be able to do.
Right.
You need to have your emergency supplies. So we talk about earning and putting away 10%. Well, you got to do the same thing in business. You got to put away some money for emergency preparedness, for business continuity, and insurance companies are pulling out of these places.
Yes.
Right. And it's just one of these things. Like, you got to really start to look at your emergency plan and your continuity plan in a much larger scale. We are starting to see these events where we're at that time frame where we're hitting the 500 marks, the 100 marks. Those are big. Those are big. Yes. And they do a lot of destruction and a lot of damage. And if you want to survive it, well, you can run or you can be well prepared.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So don't get caught with your pants down without swimming trunks.
Exactly.
Right. So anything else to add on that?
No, just I think you hit all the main points. Just thinking of back to the water, you also want to think about the transfer of water. And I really loved the tools we used with our last client. They were.
I didn't put any of those in the pictures there. No, I have other pictures, but yeah, we used a USB powered, but that goes back to having power, which is a big problem.
But
and it always, okay, I'm going to tell you my thought process on this because it's one of those deals, Matt, where, every year we go out and we look at emergency plans and we got all this great stuff. We're going to use Twitter. We're going to use text messaging. We're going to use email. Right. And we just did a bunch of active shooter drills. Right.
Yeah.
And someone had their phone. One of the incident commanders had their phone and they had all the lists on their phone. And they're trying to scroll. And then at the end of it, they're like, oh, the heck with this, because It's too much trouble, makes too much noise. I can't read it. I'm just going to use pen and paper.
Yes.
Remember, that is old technology. It's still technology.
Yep.
It is pen and paper, and it does a great job. Same thing here. So many times we go to rechargeable batteries. Well, how are you recharging your phone now?
Right.
Everybody's running out of juice.
Yep.
They're out of juice. It's been 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you recharge your phone? You have to sit there and wait to recharge. So is it, I would love for the phone companies to go back to replaceable batteries. So I could buy 4 or 5 batteries, have them charged up, slap them in the phone, and I'm good to go in a matter of seconds.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Not sit around and wait for my phone to charge forever and ever and ever. Right?
Yeah. Or at least have the option. You
Right.
know, even if you don't normally ever do that, make it so that you can crack that case and do that. You know?
Exactly.
And it's just not an option right now.
No, it's not an option. And you can do the battery banks, which are, charged, but you got to have a cord. You got to have this, you got to make sure it doesn't get wet and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. So, again, it's just one of those things, I talk about with two-way radios, rechargeable radios. I want to have a radio that I can slap a battery in and go about my day.
Right.
I want a flashlight because we're seeing rechargeable flashlights now.
Yes.
I want a flashlight that I can just slap batteries in and go.
Right.
I don't want to wait 45 minutes to an hour to be able to turn on a light, especially if I'm cruising down the stream or, trying to get out of a building. I may not have an hour to wait. So please think about the stuff that you're buying. Use that old technology. It's great. It works. If you haven't read the Millennial Project, when, they were testing new technology versus old technology, and how the old general destroyed the new young kids using old technology, actually using flashlights to get his boats out and his planes out and all this kind of stuff. So read up on that because it's great. And I think, hey, you got to deliver a message. Sometimes you got to get on your bicycle and ride your bike over there.
Right.
Sometimes you got to walk over there. Sometimes you got to, pen and paper and run it over. So those are great ways to do it. But I think it's important to really have those tools and run through it. Do your training on it.
Yeah.
So many times we don't do training. You got to do the training. Like, how do you open these water barrels? Do you even have the tools to open the water barrel? Because we saw that too. Like, where do you find these?
Yep. There were a few that didn't have the wrenches at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So get those bung wrenches. Get your bung in order, and we'll see you soon. But don't forget, if you're looking at this on the article, we do have the YouTube channel, which has a bunch of this stuff out there. You can test out some of our training videos as well. And we will see you on the next episode of the Risk Control Show.